Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel News. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Hello and welcome to show number 12 of the Infidel Podcast of the Damned. I'm your host, J. David Core, atheist, author, and ageless asset. And with me is my co-host, Nicole Samard. Hello, Nicole.
Hey, howdy. How's it going?
Also joining us once again today is one of our anchors, the Mudbrooker. How's it going, Muddy?
Oh, it's going well.
Today's Tuesday, November 25th, 2014, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming episodes of the Infidel News, which will run beginning Monday, December 1st, 2014. Show notes for all of our podcasts can be found at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. So is everybody, Nicole already had his Thanksgiving. Is everybody ready for Thanksgiving at your house, Muddy?
Pretty much. Not going to have anybody over. It'll just be me and the wife, so it won't be too much of an ordeal.
Yeah, we're doing ours tonight, actually, after the show. I just got the turkey out. We got everything all ready to go. As soon as the show's over, I'm going downstairs and having my Thanksgiving because I'm working retail this year, so I got to work Black Friday, and that's Thursday. That's Thanksgiving night, so won't be available then.
We had ours a month ago.
I know you guys are like you're, and then you have an extra day after Christmas too. You guys like just you celebrate weird over there.
And not only that, but the thing is, my wife and I were on our own, so we went out for supper at a restaurant.
Yeah.
No turkey for me. It was a filet mignon.
Yeah.
Blue.
Yeah. This is the only time of year we have turkey. I have a goose on Christmas. I have a ham on Easter. I cook Chinese food on Tet. I make a Mexican food on Cinco de Mayo. I cook a corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day. But once a year, turkey.
Yeah, but do you have lutefisk on Seton de Mai?
I should, but I have no desire to eat lutefisk.
Yeah, well, it's kind of out of season by then. Right now is actually lutefisk season.
How do you have a season for something that's preserved?
I don't know. Normally it's kind of a traditional Christmas type dish.
Yeah.
Around this time of year, you'll start seeing it in the stores from about now until the middle of January when they finally run out.
Yeah, but you can really have it anytime. It's preserved.
Yeah, if you can find it.
Yeah. Well, you buy it now and then have it whenever you want.
Yeah, you can freeze it, but
yeah,
it suffers a little bit from the freezing.
Do you have to freeze it? Isn't it? I mean, it's preserved in lye. Nothing's going to.
Yeah, no, you don't have to freeze it, I wouldn't think. But most people do. A lot of the stores do actually. They get it frozen.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it helps keep the smell down a little bit.
Yeah. Have you had it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to.
What is it?
Lutefisk. It's a Scandinavian dish. They start out with dried cod, then they reconstitute it by soaking it in lye. Then you rinse it, and then it's reconstituted like a regular chunk of fish. And then you can either boil it or bake it, and you eat it up. It's usually got a pretty intense fish smell to it. A lot of people can't get past the odor. But,
it's salted. It's salted once too, isn't it?
I don't think so.
No.
I try to remember my great grandmother used to actually make lutefisk, starting with the dried cod.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty fearsome smelling when you're making it. It's even worse than when you're eating it.
Yeah, I thought you had to dry. I thought you had to salt it in order to dry it.
I don't think so. I think they just dry it on racks.
Okay.
Because the coast of Norway is pretty cold and dry. It's almost freeze dried.
Yeah, it comes out looking all gelatinous too, like the inside of a ham bone.
More or less, yeah.
Do they sell it in cans?
No, it comes in a plastic bag. It looks more or less like a big chunk of fish fillet.
Because I saw this video once. It was like somebody had sent in from one of those Nordic countries a can of fish, and it was something like what you said, and the smell was such that the Americans who had received the can, once they opened it, they started throwing up. It smelled so bad.
That could be herring too. They do some things with herring, and they can herring, and herring can smell pretty rough. Yeah. And have you ever had mackerel?
Yeah.
It just tastes like cat food. It's awful. I don't know why anybody eats that. It's.
I don't know. I don't mind it.
Have you ever had cat food?
Well, I've had a cat, and I've seen its food, and I know it, and it's got that consistency and that smell, and it's just awful. But yeah, I don't know. I have eaten dog food when I was a kid.
Oh,
kibble,
yeah?
Kibble.
On a dare?
Yeah, on a dare. Yeah.
How did I guess?
It's not terrible.
Actually, I was reading once an article that you said, people shouldn't worry about feeding their dogs table food because before, about a century ago, all dogs ever ate was table food. That's all they ever had for thousands of years.
Yeah, but the scraps of table food were like just what came out of a fire and stuff like that. It wasn't processed, and it didn't have all the preservatives in it and all that stuff that it does now too. So I think that's why they don't want you feeding dogs table food now, because the table food is especially like chemically treated in a way that people can digest, but that might harm your animals.
I don't know. We always just fed our dogs leftovers. So.
Yeah. I mean, I feed my dog leftovers from the table too, but I don't. But I cook things on the grill a lot and stuff like that, and so it's just what they would be eating out if they were hunting dogs out in the wild. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, are people ready for the first story?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. Actually, before we start, I wanted to say that David, you come up with the best headlines for the story. You come up with the best headlines ever. I cannot come up with anything like that. And the first story, well, I'd like people to check carefully what it says right beneath, in the little lower third sign for a second. It is priceless.
Judge Judith Hawkins was elected to sit as a trial judge in Leon County, Florida. However, she has been removed from office by the state Supreme Court, who found her guilty of several ethics violations. Stating in an official opinion on the matter, we conclude that Judge Hawkins' conduct was fundamentally inconsistent with the responsibilities of judicial office, demonstrating present unfitness to hold office, and that removal was the only appropriate sanction. Based on the violations found by the hearing panel, which were supported by clear and convincing evidence, we conclude removal from the bench is the only appropriate sanction in this case. These ethics violations stem from the uncontested fact that Hawkins used her position as a trial judge to sell items of a religious nature to support her side business, a for-profit Christian church known as Gaza Road Ministries. The determination to remove her from the bench was a harsher penalty than that recommended by the Florida Judicial Qualifications Commission, who suggested a 3-month suspension without pay, a $17,000 fine, and an official reprimand. However, the court took the most drastic step available because Hawkins allegedly tampered with evidence, violated tax laws, and shirked her duty while doing church business on government time. Hawkins has filed an appeal.
So you liked that headline, did you?
Yes, canceling Judge Judy. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, that's for anybody who is listening instead of watching. Yeah, the headline was canceling Judge Judy. So yeah, I the first thing that when I saw that story, the first thing I saw was Judge Judith, and I thought, I wonder if there's going to be some way I can fit in a Judge Judy headline, and it just was right there.
It was perfect.
No.
Except for that woman, she's not perfect.
Yeah, and the thing about that story too, in all the background information, the panel that suggested that she be reprimanded, the one that looked into it, didn't recommend that she be removed from the bench, and I don't see how they could not recommend that she not be removed from the bench. The things that she did, she destroyed evidence when she knew she was going to be subpoenaed. She destroyed evidence. Now, if any judge had anybody in front of them that did that, they would throw the book at them. So as a judge, her doing that, she has to be removed from the bench. There's no way to let her continue.
Absolutely.
But her buddies are all like backing her up, and they're going to. She's appealing, and they're going to back her appeal.
Yeah, it makes you long for the good old days when judges wanted a little money on the side. They just took bribes instead of selling church tchotchkes off the bench, you know, just get paid to throw a case now and then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sad though. I mean, the situation that we're in, right? There is no way to be assured that everybody that we elect to office doesn't become corrupt. And I can't imagine anybody going into office and not becoming corrupt. I don't see how you can avoid it these days. There's just it's so prevalent. I mean, from just being a cop to being a city councilman to being a senator, the lobbies, the the graft, it's all just right there out in the open anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, what doesn't help is number one. Okay, like I don't know. I think you're the only country I know of that does that elects the judges. Usually, judges are appointed. Number one.
We don't elect all of our judges, but the ones that we do elect, nobody knows anything about them.
Exactly.
They don't even run. They don't even run on. Most of the time, they don't run for as a member of a party. So you don't even know. Like you can't even vote. Like if you vote straight blue or straight red, you can't even do that with a judge. You have to know what the judge and who knows one judge from another. What's good, you know.
And the way your lobbyist system works in the U.S., I just
It's crazy.
Shake my head and I can't believe it.
Yeah,
You know, it pretty much guarantees corruption, and all it does is it prices bribing your local official out of most people's price range.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
if you can't afford to dump $500,000 into their campaign fund, you can't even play the game.
Yeah, and the one thing that they do, this is a sneaky thing that gets done, is they won't even. A lot of times they don't even have to bribe the senator. All they do is offer him a job, and then they'll do whatever that person needs done, and then when they leave office, they have a job waiting for them, and they become lobbyists most of the time.
That's another real popular one, or a seat on the board of directors of whatever.
Yeah. When you go back and look at the Iraq War and the kind of stuff that went on behind closed doors with Cheney, it was just so. I mean, it was like almost transparent in its intransparency.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to read the Canadian rules because I don't think our elected officials are allowed to take anything from lobbyists.
Yeah, well, ours aren't technically either, but they have ways around it.
They can
Like I said,
accept some gifts, but they're supposed to declare the gifts that were given to them by whatever. And it's only supposed to be small value type stuff, but there's a million ways around it.
Yeah, and they can offer your son or your nephew or your grandson a job, and who's going to say anything about that?
Like you were saying earlier, being offered a job. A public elected official cannot take any lobbying job for 5 years after they quit.
Yeah, we need a law like that. That would be, but who's going to pass it?
Because for 5 years after they're no longer elected, they cannot do any lobbying work at all. There's all sorts of things like that.
Yeah. But
we don't have lobbyists writing laws for the government. We don't have things like that.
Yeah, we get that law. They'll write a law specifically and hand it right over. And like there was a case recently where there was a guy presenting a law in session, and he's reading the law, and one of his from the other party stood up and said, "Can I ask you where that law came from?" And he said, "I wrote it." And he said, "You did, because I found the exact same wording on the website for this lobbying group." And it was the exact same wording, and the guy's claiming he wrote it, right there, but he didn't.
There's a thing like that in Florida last year. Some legislator submitted the bill that he'd supposedly written up. Well, he forgot to take the header off of it where it came from ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council.
Yeah.
They're a right-wing group that basically writes laws and hands them off to chosen legislators to introduce. And yeah, he had this printed up for distribution so the other legislators could read it. Well, he forgot to take the header off, and it all said right across the top, from Alec, or I think it was a email header type of thing. And yeah, this is the law he supposedly wrote.
Yeah, that's like the situation with what's the name of the book? Pandas. It was that intelligent design book, something about pandas. They had highlighted the word intelligent design or creationism and typed intelligent design over it, but didn't highlight it thoroughly, and so it ended up saying IntelliCreationism design.
Well, they really got caught. But that Judge Judy, like, how can you have a for-profit ministry?
Oh, there's all kind of for-profit ministries. That's not a big. I mean, that's not an unusual thing. But because they don't have to
pay tax.
For-profit ministry is supposed to pay tax, but I don't know that they. It's basically just a person's job. She has a for-profit ministry is usually either out of your home or whatever. So she doesn't actually have usually you don't generally have like a physical church. Just people come to your house and stuff like that. But once you have a physical church, then you can apply for the tax exemption. And be a nonprofit. But where the money's coming from, is always, it's always going to be tithing. So any tithing and anything like that, is going to pay the minister's salary. So the minister always has to pay taxes, even if it's a nonprofit church. The minister has to pay taxes. So there's no sense if the only place the money's going is into the minister's pocket. There's no sense in not calling it a for-profit.
Yeah. It's just I'm not familiar with all that kind of weird stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the second story.
An indigenous woman was burned alive in Paraguay after being accused of witchcraft, a local prosecutor confirmed last month. Prosecutor Fanny Aguilera said that members of the Mbaya Guarani ethnic group tied 45-year-old Adafino Ocampos to a wooden pole and shot arrows at her before they burned her alive. Ocampos was sentenced to death by the community's chief in Tahi, a village some 290 kilometers north of the capital, Ascension. The date of the killing was unclear. Aguilera has charged 9 men in the village with first-degree murder, and they have already acknowledged killing the woman. A report by the UN Refugee Agency estimates that thousands of people worldwide are accused of being witches every year. The UN says they are often abused, cast out from their families and communities, and sometimes killed. I've been working in Paraguay for 40 years, and I can't remember a similar episode of an execution for alleged sorcery, said Jose Zanardini, an Italian anthropologist and Catholic priest. The tragic death of this woman is isolated and out of the ordinary within the coexistence of Paraguay's 20 ethnic indigenous groups. In general, the Indians are very peaceful and tolerant. The State Agency for the Protection of Indigenous Peoples said in a statement Wednesday that although indigenous communities are ruled by customary law, their acts cannot violate the constitutional rights of respecting the life and liberty of people.
Okay, so they have charged and are trying 9 men in the village with first-degree murder. Presumably, those are the men who actually did the killing. But what about the chief who sentenced her to death? Is he being tried? I didn't hear any mention of that. Do you know?
No, I don't know.
No.
But that is an important question. I was wondering about that last week when I was editing the script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should look into that. But yeah, if he's not being tried, that's a miscarriage of justice right there. That's like.
I had trouble qualifying what religion was involved when I put together the footage for the show, because I always put the country in all caps. Then after that, the religion that's involved, and then after that, the title. It's always like that in the lower thirds. But in this case, I didn't know what to put to say which religion was involved, so I just put superstition.
Yeah, that's good.
So then we could say all religions are superstitious, but that's a different.
Yeah, well, it's tribal, so it's some kind of indigenous religion. It might not even have a name.
Yeah.
It kind of strikes me as odd because usually it's the Catholic Church, considering tribal religions to be practicing witchcraft. You know, so if it was tribal religion, what would they consider witchcraft?
Mm-hmm.
You know, practicing a religion of another tribe, maybe. Or
Yeah, that's a good point. That because what is witchcraft in an indigenous religion? And
yeah, or it might have been that the men involved were Catholic.
yeah, that's a possibility
Even,
too.
even though it was an indigenous community, they may have been converted years ago.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of religions amongst indigenous people that started off as indigenous religions and then adopted aspects of Catholicism into them, like Santeria and Voodoo. They're all very amalgamated. Voodoo has also got a lot of African influence, so it's Caribbean, African, and Catholic all kind of blended together.
Yeah. It's kind of, the human brain adapts to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea, the word witch obviously is, an anglicized word for whatever the idea is that they're prosecuting, because it's, the indigenous word wouldn't be witch. That's
Obviously.
Yeah. So that came over with Christendom, the word, and so probably part of the idea came over too that way. But
just unusual.
Yeah, there's a so this was what I was mentioning this story last week, I think, when we were talking about the African witches, and I mentioned that somebody was in Paraguay or in the I don't know if I remember that it was Paraguay, but in the South Seas somewhere or wherever Paraguay. Where's Paraguay exactly? It's in South America, right?
South America, yes.
But it's not on the coast.
Give me half a second.
Trying to remember high school geography.
No, it's not on the coast.
No, okay. So it's an Amazonian kind of a tribal thing then.
Because according to what I see here,
it's south, right?
It's south, but it's on the east side. It's not far from.
Is it under Chile? Chile.
It's right north of Argentina.
Okay.
On the right side of Argentina.
Okay. Yeah. So that would have been the Spanish came in from the other side, right? So that would have had there would have been a lot more French and English influence on Paraguay then.
I'm not sure, because the thing is, the French were very limited in that area. They're in Guyana, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was mostly Spanish and Portuguese.
Portuguese,
because Brazil.
Portuguese to Brazil, yeah.
Yeah, so it's sandwiched between Brazil and Argentina.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if anybody in the audience has any idea what kind of influences tribal Paraguayan religion had, let us know, because we don't like to be uneducated.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the official language of Paraguay, it's Spanish, and Guarani, an indigenous language of the Tucan family. So now, don't you feel like you'll be going to bed a lot more educated?
Yeah. Now I'm smart.
Yeah. Okay, now on to the third story.
Do it.
I gotta run for a second. The St. Petersburg authorities have refused to officially recognize the Church of Scientology as a legal entity for nearly 2 decades. The battle for recognition started back in March of 1995. The Scientologists claim to have applied on 6 different occasions between 1995 and 2003. 2 years before their first request, they were told that the application had to be sent to one of the State Duma's committees for evaluation. However, since the committee never made a decision, the St. Petersburg authorities simply closed the file. In August 2003, Scientologists went to a district court which ruled 2 months later that the rejections were illegal. A 2006 appeal was just as unsuccessful. Disappointed, the applicants went to the European Court of Human Rights in November of the same year. Although Russia freely admitted to violating the group's religious rights, it claimed that the decision not to recognize Scientology as a church was based on state law and security reasons. Although it took 8 years for the case to come to a conclusion, the European Court has finally ruled in favor of the Church of Scientology and awarded it €7,500 as compensation for moral damages.
There were two things that got my attention in this story. Number one, it took the European Court, 8 years to come to a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, they gave a pitiful €7,500 in compensation.
Yeah, that's not much money. But screw the Scientologists. I don't care. That's the other thing that I wanted to say about this is that Scientology doesn't even call itself a religion most of the time. They hide the fact that they're a religion as much as possible. When you first come to when they first suck people in, they don't tell them it's a religion. They tell them it's some kind of a mental thing. They use Dianetics, and it's a self-help and blah blah blah. Then gradually it becomes a religion over time. A lot of people that came to Scientology in the early years didn't know it was a religion until they were already involved. So,
yeah. I can see why the Russians would be worried about security reasons, because the biggest infiltration of the U.S. government that was ever pulled off was done by Scientologists. They were stealing. Oh yeah, it was look up Operation Snow White. A bunch of Scientologists got busted, including L. Ron Hubbard's wife. She ended up doing prison time for it. He, of course, disavowed the whole thing. But they had operatives infiltrate various government offices. They were stealing documents. This is back when they were still fighting, trying to get IRS to recognize them as religions for the tax purposes. But yeah, that was the single largest breach of government security, and it was the Scientologists that did it.
that was in the United States.
Oh yeah, this is back mid-70s, I think it was.
Well, yeah, mid-70s, and according to Wikipedia, it included a series of infiltrations and thefts from 136 government agencies, foreign embassies and consulates, as well as private organizations critical of Scientology. That was huge.
And this church is still just like running around like whatever. I don't know. Of all of the religions out there, the Scientologists are the one that I just consider to be the most ridiculous. It is just the even the Raelians I get kind of to a point, because that's really just a sex cult. But the Scientologists, who is that stupid? How are you that gullible? And then there's such a when people try to leave, they'll like mess up their lives. They'll mess with the they're horrible. I'll get it. Something like
okay.
Actually, so for our viewers, they will notice that I use a picture of a little, there are books on display, and then there's a machine right next to the books, and that's an EMeter.
Ah, is that what that is? Got an EMeter?
Yes.
What do you have an EMeter for?
Hey, it's to, gauge people's energy. So people hold two pieces of metal, and then this little weird-looking machine, measures whatever. And I guess that it's just conduction of electricity, but they just pretend that it's something else.
And it tells you all about your personality and your
Yeah.
stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, while they're asking you questions, the needle will jump if you have I'm trying to remember the jargon that they use. Basically they use it to identify a problem with your mind. If you have some sort of emotional problem or whatever, when they're questioning you, they'll watch the needle and it'll jump whenever you do that. Well, is really measuring, like Nickel said, it's electrical conductivity to your skin. You grip it a little bit harder, it'll jump. If you're a little bit sweatier on one side than the other, the needle will jump. It's a real, there's no real magic involved in this thing. It's just a ohms meter, really.
Yeah, yeah. And the person conducting the test, I always suspect that the people conducting the test are a little bit trained in the same techniques that fraudulent psychics use. The same kind of just cold reading, so that they can look at your reactions and see where you come up, self-doubting, and then use that against you.
Yeah, well, I just did a quick search for EMeter, and so as Kat said, it's just a modified ohm meter, but they call it an electropsychometer.
Psycho?
Yes, psycho.
Electropsychometer.
Yes.
Electropsychometer, maybe? Or,
yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's total bullshit. It's just and they are the worst group of people. And the more I learn about like John Travolta and Tom Cruise and their involvement in that religion, and other celebrities that are involved in that religion, the less respect I have for those people as individuals. I don't even want to watch a Tom Cruise movie anymore. And Tom Cruise has made some of my favorite movies. He's not the greatest actor, but he picks good movies to do. And John Travolta too. John Travolta has made some really good choices and as far as like interesting, entertaining movies. But yeah, I don't even want to watch them anymore because they're.
Do you know what the last second last EMeter was called?
What's that?
It was called the Mark Super 7 Quantum EMeter.
No,
with a name like that, it's got to be real.
It's got to be real.
No, quantum. It's got quantum right there in the name, so it's got to be a real super duper EMeter.
Yeah, and it's got Mark, so it's Mark something. So
yeah. And any religion that was made up by a science fiction writer has to be real. Because.
Oh yes. Actually, how many people in that religion know that he was a science fiction writer?
How many of them know that he did time for conning people? He did time as a con man before he started writing science fiction. And then he thought, I'll make up a religion. So, yeah.
The thing is, reading his books, you can tell he's a right-wing nut right from the start.
Yeah.
So these books are fun. It's the typical cowboy and Indian type story, but
yeah, I still, one of these days I'm going to watch Battlefield Earth. I haven't watched it yet.
No, I haven't.
But I know it's terrible from everything I've heard about it. But it still looks like it could be a fun, Plan 9 from outer space kind of that kind of bad, so bad it's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm not interested in watching it.
Now, speaking of so bad it's good, have you guys did you hear about Kirk Cameron and Rotten Tomatoes, his episode with Rotten Tomatoes?
Yes.
Did you hear about that, Muddy? It was so funny.
No, not really.
He was getting a bunch of bad reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, so he went to his Facebook page and he asked his fans to review the movie positively, and he told them you don't even have to have seen it, just write a positive review to counter these negative reviews. So a couple people posted on Twitter, Kirk Cameron is asking his fans to write positive reviews, and he doesn't care if they've seen the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, go ahead and write some reviews. So people sort of just bombarding it with bad reviews. It's got an even worse rating now than it did naturally, because he went on Facebook and asked people to write. But one of the best things that somebody said. Let me see if I can find this real quick, because it cracked me up. Give me a second. I'll find this real quick. But one of them was, it makes me want to convert to Zoroastrianism. I thought that was a great one. But the best one, let's see. This is a can't-miss motion picture if you've recently lost the power of sight and want to stop yourself from longing for visual entertainment. That's great. And then one was Jesus wept. Then demanded a full refund and punched a reindeer. so yeah, people are like just killing this movie now. It's so funny.
It's all on Rotten Tomatoes, right?
On Rotten Tomatoes, yeah. So yeah,
I love Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's a great website. Yeah. Some movies do well on Rotten Tomatoes, so you know, and it's really a site. It started off as a site for people to lambaste movies, to say how much they hate movies. So when that audience likes a movie, it's a good movie because they're there to tear movies a new asshole. That's their whole purpose in life. So do you have a Christian glitches for us this week?
No, but I wanted to bring up the fact that, remember last week the story we had about that Creationist Conference over at a university?
Michigan, Ann Arbor, yeah.
Yes. If you go check their website, it's really funny. It is so cheaply done. And for example, if you want, they've got among their source material a whole section called videos, and the only way you can watch their videos is if you register, give them your name and email, and that section there where you give them your name and email is powered by Monkey Mail.
Oh, MailChimp.
MailChimp, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah. So
and MailChimp. All it is
newsletters.
Yes. So
you're on their mailing list.
Exactly. You end up with a lot of junk mail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, autoresponders and other stuff like that. I use MailChimp for my newsletter. When at the end of every broadcast, when I say you can log in, or you can sign up for my newsletter, but that's an opt-in. That's what you're getting, and I only do it like once a month. Sometimes I skip a month to send out notices. So yeah, I'm well familiar with MailChimp, but if they're fraudulently signing people up to MailChimp in that way, MailChimp will and MailChimp finds out about it, they'll cancel their account.
Because all it says is powered by MailChimp, and that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, and MailChimp does not take kindly to that kind of thing. They want you to tell people that you're going to get that what you're doing when you sign up for a MailChimp account. That's in the TOS. So we should let MailChimp know.
Yeah, I'll put the link to the website for everybody to see it, and then complain to MailChimp.
Yeah, everybody, let MailChimp know what's going on there. That'll be great. That's that'll be fun. We can start something. So
that's it for today.
Yeah, but Mudbrooker, you put a video out last week. Are you going to be doing more?
I'm working on it.
That's
finally getting caught up on my work, and got a new computer. I got to figure out how to run that thing yet.
Okay, so get signed up for Mudbrooker's as a subscriber on his account if you haven't yet, because they're entertaining videos. The video that he put out this last week was about a court case where the defendant died the day before the trial was to end, and they didn't tell the jury, and they went ahead and had closing arguments for a dead guy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the closing arguments were actually the defense had already finished their case and given their closing argument by the time the court found out the guy had killed himself, and all that was really left was the prosecutor's closing statement. But yeah, they decided, well, they'll just let the jury return a verdict, seeing as how we're almost done with the damn thing anyway. Yeah, I didn't bother to fill them in that they were convicting a dead guy.
Yeah.
And that was right here in my home county.
That was a fun one. Okay. Well, okay. So that pretty much wraps up today's show then, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all for today. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors present these and other stories not normally covered in the media. In the coming week, the Infidel will rerun today's stories and many more fascinating ones. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel Podcast of the Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to Truth Surge, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To as our opening theme. We'd also like to thank Muddy for participating in today's podcast. Thank you, Mr. Mudbrooker.
You're welcome.
Nicole's channel is Nicole SD and can be found at youtube.com/NICOLSD. I'm Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter, and my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know, an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/lupalanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter, which comes to you from MailChimp. Signing up also entitles you to choose one free ebook title from my collection of 99-cent novellas. Thanks for watching, and we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.